Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I just got a call a couple of days ago about my friend Pui. I got a call saying that he moved on from this life. He was shot and his life was ended by the Alaskan Police Department. So today I just want to share a story about him. I first met him in 2008 when I first got to Atwater. Before I was in Atwater, I was in Lompoc, Victorville, and Beaumont. Now, by the time I got into Atwater, I've already been down almost 10 years, and I've already built kind of a reputation and been into a few things. When I was in Victorville, I was kind of beefing with this Islander group called PF, Pacific Family. They were acting like they were the big homies on the yard and that people had to pay dues. They were trying to copy like the Black Hand. When the Black Hand's on the yard, all the Sereños pay dues. Whatever they do, they give the big homies, the Black Hand, 30% of their issues. Well, at this time, I've shared this story with you guys. I had a homie that came from Pollock. We had a bunch of tobacco, at the sack, amongst other things. But I wasn't breaking them off. And the reason I wasn't breaking them off is because I've seen the way they conduct themselves, and they were kind of a little scandalous. So one day they decided to send a Guamanian dude named Yano into my cell to try to press my cellie. Well, long story short, we ended up putting him in the hospital. My homeboy Kale hit him with an ice pick, and what saved his life was his tooth. The impact was so hard that it knocked his tooth out. But after that, I punctured him about 7, 8 times. So I get sent to Beaumont. And while I was in Beaumont, I ended up punishing this Cambodian dude who was part of this little Asian California crew that was being paid by the Chinese to rob computer chips back in the late 80s and early 90s. So there's a lot of them in the system. So when I get to Atwater, there's a lot of Guamanians, and the dude that I punished in Beaumont had a handful of co-defendants over there too. So needless to say, the yard was kind of uneasy because I had a few homies over there, not homies or anything from my hood, but dudes that I knew that I've done time with in Lompoc and that I've done time with in Victorville. So when I hit the yard, the homies over there, when I say the homies, I'm meaning like the Islanders, the Asians and stuff, they weren't really feeling me because, I punished some of their co-defendants and some of their people, by the time I got to Atwater. So, and if anybody's been around Guamanian doing time, like I know a lot of Guamanians, and a lot of them are good dudes. But at the end of the day, they're pretty racist, meaning that they just stick to their own. Even though we have an Asian Islander car and everybody's supposed to ride under one umbrella, most of the Guamanians that I've been on the yard with, they really stick to themselves, just Guamanians. And, like I don't take nothing away from them. They go hard, through all the histories that you hear about, the Asians that getting it in, it's mostly the Guamanians. So me being in Atwater and me have punished one of the Guamanians in Victorville, a lot of the Guamanians over there really wasn't feeling me. Now then I got this other handful of Asians, most of them were Vietnamese, that wasn't really feeling me either because I punished one of their homies in Beaumont. And then when it comes to the Hawaiians in Atwater at the time, they were racist too. You know, they hung out. When I first got to Atwater, the car was segregated. You know, the Vietnamese hung out with the Vietnamese, the Guamanians hung out with the Guamanians, the Hawaiians hung out with each other, and so on and so forth. You know, it didn't change up. The yard didn't change up and became unified until me and my homeboy Bryson got there. You know, Bryson is Hawaiian, I'm Cambodian, but and then some of the older guys that was there started getting shipped out. You know, their points dropped or whatever, so they started going to FCIs and stuff. And after a couple years I was there, we really feel end up creating a real family of people that had each other's back, people that had each other's interests, because we made it known like, you know, when you get off the bus, you declare yourself. If you're riding on a car, regardless of what race you are, whether you're Hawaiian, Cambodian, Asian, Vietnamese, you know, Guamanian, Filipino, or whatever, if we're homies, we're homies. If your paperwork check out, then that's the end of it. Because, you know, on the streets, a lot of these groups don't like each other, especially the ones that are coming out of Hawaii. In Hawaii, the Samoans and Hawaiians don't like each other. The Tongans, Samoans, Hawaiians, they all beef. You know, growing up, I don't really know the politics of Hawaii, but being in the feds, the ones that come out of Hawaii don't really function with each other. Me coming out of Utah, you know, I grew up with a lot of Polynesians, meaning I have a lot of Samoan friends and a lot of Tongan friends. So it's natural for me to embrace them as they're my homies, as if they are my brothers, and that's how I carried it. But a lot of the Asians, they don't grow up. They didn't grow up the way I did, so they try to segregate themselves from the islanders. But because of my relationship with the islanders and with the people that I met along the way, through those relationships, we were able to really unify our car. So I met Pui in 2008. You know, they sent me into 2A. I had a homie named Billy from Utah. He's locked backed up right now. And we were sailors in Lompoc. But at that time, Billy was kind of just, you know, out of it. You know, I don't want to say strung out but he was just kind of, you know, he was drinking, he was kind of partying. He wasn't, his mind frame wasn't really, you know, centered on the business. So, so me and Pui, we were in the unit. We ended up kicking it real tough. And when I first got to Atwater, that was the one dude that I knew that was gonna have my back. So when I got to Atwater, a lot of them dudes on the yard wasn't feeling me. Like the Guamanians wasn't feeling me because of what I did to one of their homies in Victorville. A handful of the Vietnamese wasn't feeling me because I punished that Cambodian dude in Beaumont. And the Hawaiians wasn't feeling me because when I was in Beaumont, I was pressing a couple of them Hawaiian dudes. And the reason I did that is because I found out that they had checked in from Atwater, and the homie, this Puerto Rican homie, Q, rest in peace too. You know, he died. After we got shipped out of Beaumont, he went to Big Sandy and was pushing his weight around on a couple of young bloods, and them two young homies end up, you know, murking him. But he had came and told me that Eddie was in a shoe and that the homies on the yard didn't let him on the compound. And it wasn't me that didn't let him on the compound. And I figured these two Hawaiian dudes that came from Atwater had something to do with it. So when I went to hit him up, they're like, oh, you know, like, you know, they started trying to make excuses. And we was about to crash with them, but my homeboy Bullet, another one, rest in peace, got a lot of dead homies, man. So he was like, man, look, just leave them alone. They're not really part of our car. Because in Beaumont, there wasn't really a unified Asian Islander car. You know, everybody was segregated. Everybody did their own thing. But I didn't want to just sit there on the compound and let these dudes walk around without any repercussions. So I ended up having them pay me to stay on the yard. But anywhere in the feds, even though they have different prisons throughout the countries, if you're anybody, if you have co-defendants or whatever, there's always a line of communication to establish. If something pops off on one yard, it could easily jump off on another yard, especially when it comes to certain groups. When it comes to like the TS, the Menacita, formerly known as Texas MA, the Norteños, the Black Hand, when they're beefing with a group, word's going to get spread because they have a real solid line of communication, and they're going to hit their people in the other yard and let them know, hey, if these group of people hit this yard, we just bumped head with them over here on this other yard, so on and so forth. So it's real easy for when those big organization groups or gangs, when they jump off and they bump heads on one yard, that it can spread throughout the rest of the system. So that being said, everybody, if you're anybody, if you got co-defendants in the system, you're going to keep communication with them. And there's no difference between the Guamanians, the Hawaiians, or these other Asians. When I got there, there was already kites that was sent there before I even got in the yard. Because when you get transferred, people can look you up and know where you're going. And before you hit a compound, the laundry crew gets a list of names because they got to make the bedrolls for everybody that's coming off the bus. So they get your name and they pass it. And then just from your name, they can put, if your last name is Gonzalez or Ramirez, it's easy to assume that you're Mexican or Latino descent, you know. So if your last name is like Chin or whatever, people already know, kind of educated guess that, hey, there's a couple of Hawaiians coming off the yard, coming off the bus. There's 3 blacks, there's 4 whites, or whatever. Because in the bedroll, they also got a picture of you on your bedroll with your name tag on it. So before you hit the compound, if people want to know who you are, they already know who you are, right? So about when I got on the compound, the homies already knew who I was, a little bit about me and what I've been up to. So when I finally hit the yard, cause we went, sorry. So when we got transferred from Beaumont, went to Atwater, they put us in 6B. They put us in 6B for 2 weeks because they wanted, because coming from Beaumont, Texas and California don't get along. So when they shipped us out, they put us in this unit called 6B, and it was kind of like a quarantine unit. It's just a regular unit, but they use it for a quarantine to be able to review everybody to see if they can walk that compound. Because California and Texas, as far as the Mexicans are concerned, they're at war. So any Texas dude that come from that hit a California yard, if he's part of any of those Texas gang, he's gonna get hit. Same thing with the California dudes. When they get sent from California out to Texas, if they're part of any of these gangs out of California, they're gonna get hit. So they had us in 6B for about 2 weeks, so they can interview everybody and all the rest. And by the time they opened the door, all the whites came out, all the blacks came out, I came out, but only they had about 10 Mexicans. Only like 2 of the Mexicans came out on the yard. The rest of them refused the yard because they were from Texas. So when I get into 2A, that's where I met my homeboy Pui. And at the time, like I said, there was a lot of tension amongst the cars because a lot of the people wasn't feeling what I was doing or what I've been doing. And at that time, like I really honestly felt that Pui was the only one that had my back. I had other couple homies that I've done time with from other places, and they knew my reputation. They knew that I wouldn't have done these things if I wasn't in the right. But they weren't gonna go as far as sticking their neck out for me, you know. And on one occasion, I had to go see all these dudes. When I was in the kitchen, they had a Guamanian dude named Kenny, who later on, me and him became really good friends. I was in the kitchen, and he came and sat down at the table that I was at. He's like, "Hey, man, what happened in Victorville?" I already knew what he was asking about, so I explained the story to him about how dude came up in my cell, disrespected me. He came in my cell with a knife. When you do that, it can only go two ways. I have to punish dude, or I'm gonna be a victim for the rest of my bid. And I chose to punish dude. And when he heard the full story, he's like, "Yeah, it's like, man, you're good. Whatever beef that is, if you guys run into each other, you guys deal with it. But as far as the rest of us is concerned, man, you're good." Then I had to have a conversation with the Vietnamese about punishing their homeboy in Beaumont. And the reason I punished this homeboy in Beaumont was because when I was in the process of getting them a couple of them Hawaiian dudes to pay me for staying on the yard, he went and told them. So he went and told on me. And he's supposed to be my homeboy. He's Cambodian, I'm Cambodian. He's supposed to have my back. But he went and told them dudes that, oh, Mason's about to bust a move on you guys. And they tried to have a meeting about me on the yard. And me and Bullet and the homie B, we stormed into the meeting like, man, what are we talking about? Yeah, fuck you guys. You guys are a bunch of fucking, busters. We don't go to the police and talk about nothing, you know. And then I found out that it was the Cambodian dude that hipped him to what I was plotting. So I ended up punishing him for that. And we had a back and forth with I had a back and forth with his co-defendant for a minute because every week they kept getting kites about the incident. So I finally got tired of because every time a bus comes, he gets a kite, and he would show up at my unit or he'd go get one of my older homies, homie T-Bone, D-Ray from Modesto, his squad. He's Cambodian, he's older than me, so I look at him like he's the older homie, and I respect whatever he has to say. So D-Ray come and get me one time, and he's like, "Hey man, the dude's still tripping." I said, "About what?" I said, "About that shit in Beaumont." I was like, "Well, where he's at?" Well, they're over there in the unit. So we walked across the yard to the unit. I went and asked for them to come out. 3 of the Vietnamese came out, and I was like, "Listen, man, we need to go ahead and deal with this right now because I don't want to have to keep repeating myself about what happened. Your homeboy fucked up. We went heads up. I fucked him off. I know he's your co-defendant. I know you might feel some type of way about it. So what do you want to do? You want to catch a sale or you want to dead the issue?" I gave them an opportunity to do whatever they feel like they wanted to do. But at the end of the day, they were like, "Hey, that's between you guys and the issue's dead." And to their credit, they never brought it up again. And through the course of the 7 years I was there in Atwater, those dudes, we became good friends because they realized once they got to know me that I'm about the homies. I'm about doing the right thing as far as the homies concerned, but I have a real strict guideline that I abide by. And if you deviate from that, I'm going to hold you accountable. And the reason I have to hold you accountable is because it's our reputation on the yard. If we're known for letting any goofy motherfuckers run around with us, then we're not going to be able to wheel a deal, associate with other cars, hustle, or any of that because no one's going to respect you. But if they know that you're about your business, you handle your business, and you keep your car clean, then people's going to fuck with you, and there's going to be opportunities for you to make money and hustle and all the rest. So once everybody got to know me, like I said, I ended up having the yard for the homies after I was there for a while because everybody got to know me. They knew how I carried myself, and they knew every time something pop off, big or small, I'm the first one there and the last to leave. So going back to my homeboy Pui, like I said, the first couple years, I felt like he was the only one that had my back, you know. And Pui's a nut, you know. The incident that happened before I got there, they had a Hawaiian dude, a Samoan dude that came on there on the yard, and they found out he was foul, but he was a big ass Samoan dude, you know. And a lot of them polys, Samoans and Tongans, especially coming from the islands, they grew up fighting because back in the islands, back then they didn't have guns. Everything was, you know, they call it, everything was hands and feet, and a lot of them grew up knowing how to box and different type of martial arts and stuff. So here's a big ass Samoan, but he's a rat, you know, and some of the homies were kind of like, "Ooh, he's kind of big, right?" And they were kind of intimidated by him. So they put him in. So they put the Samoan. So they come up with a plan. They went and bought a bunch of wine. Went in there and drank with the Samoan dude and got him all fucked up and drunk. And then they smashed him out. And Pui was the one on top of him. He was on the second tier. And they said when they knocked him down, Pui was just booting his head, just crushing his head into the bars, just what I mean, kicking it like a soccer ball. So Pui had a lot of love on the compound, and like I said, the time that he was there, he was my road dog. But he had ended up going home around 2013. He ended up going home 2013, 2015. I get shipped out. I end up in Lewisburg in 2016, and I hear that when I got to Florence, my homie Eddie Sewell got out. I think he got out around 2018. So he gets out. I call him, and he tell me Pui's back in jail for a body. Right? Something happened at a club, and the homie went and domed the other dude. And I was like, damn, what was he facing? At the time, he was facing about 40 years. He just had got out of the feds. He only been on the street for about four years before he caught this case, and he ended up going back to the state in Alaska for the body. But then they dropped it from first degree to manslaughter, and he ended up doing about 8 years. So 8 years, he ended up getting back out. That's what brings us to this episode. So I think he's been out for a few months, and he had hooked up with a girl out there in Alaska. And the particular incident, I don't know the details of the situation. I'm just relaying what the homie told me when they called me, was that he got into a fight with his girl, and he had holding his girl hostage. So the neighbors called the police. They came down. Police came, surrounded the place, and one of the snipers ended up sniping him. They called me to ask me to go to Alaska for his funeral next week. But as of right now, I can't leave the state. There's been things that's going on out here with me that I can't leave the state right now. So that's, there's a lot of reason why I haven't been on these videos as much as I want to. There's a lot of stuff transpiring. There's a lot of dudes out here that, think they're somebody until that somebody comes through, and then they're dialing 911. But that's neither here or there. But I just wanted to share this with you in memory of my homie Pua. I got a lot of stories about him. Me and him had a lot of fun in Atwater. We get up every morning at 6. We go around, across the yard, go get a batch of wine, come back out to the yard, sit there and drink our wine at 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the rest of the compound to come out. We were together every day, man, doing everything together, man. And I was hoping that I get a chance to kick it with him when I came home. And it's unfortunate that we're not going to have that opportunity. But, man, wherever you at right now, Pui, man, I love you. We're going to miss you. Rest in peace, brother. Welcome to the USP.